The night sky above the ruined city was silent. Broken towers stood like dark skeletons, and the wind carried the smell of smoke and dust. Once this place had been alive with light and voices. Now only silence remained. In the middle of the broken street, a young alien girl stood alone. Her silver skin glowed faintly under the cracked moon. Her long, dark eyes were heavy with sorrow. She was the last of her squad, maybe the last of her people in this city. Everyone else had fallen. Her friends, her family, her home. Her hands trembled as she held a small glowing shard, a device of her people. It was both a weapon and a key. One final strike, one final push, and everything would end. She believed she had nothing left to live for. The girl raised her face to the broken sky. She whispered words in her own language, a farewell. Her voice was soft, almost lost in the wind. Tears formed but did not fall. She told herself that death would be easier than the pain of being alone. Her heart was heavy. She thought no one would remember her name. No one would even know she once lived. The world would forget. That was her final thought as she prepared to press the shard to her chest. But then, a voice. Clear, human, and unexpected. "You don't have to do that." The alien girl froze. Her hand stopped in midair. She turned quickly, eyes wide. From the shadows of a broken wall, a figure stepped forward. He wore armor, scratched and burnt, but still strong. His face was pale, dirty from smoke, and his eyes were steady. He was a human. For a long moment, neither moved. The air between them was tense. The girl's heart raced. She had been taught that humans were enemies. Cold, ruthless, the destroyers of her people. Yet this man's voice, it was calm, almost gentle. Her sharp voice broke the silence. "Stay back." She raised the shard, ready to strike, but the human did not raise his weapon. He lifted his empty hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. His voice was steady, but there was a strange sadness in it. "I've seen too much death," he said. "Don't add yours to it." The girl's eyes narrowed. Her breath came fast. She could not understand him. Why would a human stop her? Why would he care if she lived or died? Her mind screamed at her, "He is lying." Humans always lie. But her heart whispered something else. His eyes did not look like the eyes of a killer. They looked... "Cherdas broken," she shouted again, her voice shaking. "Why do you care?" The man stepped closer, carefully, as if he was afraid a sudden move would scare her away. His eyes never left hers. "Because," he said softly, "I don't want to watch someone else give up." The words struck her like a blade of light. For the first time in days, she felt confusion stronger than despair. She lowered the shard slightly, her arm trembling. The silence stretched between them. Dust fell from the ruined walls, and the cold wind howled like ghosts. Somewhere far away, machines moved through the city, searching for survivors. But here, in this moment, only two broken beings faced each other. An alien girl ready to die and a human who refused to let her. Her voice grew quieter. "I am the last. There is nothing left for me." The man shook his head slowly. "As long as you breathe, there is something left. Don't decide it ends now." Her chest rose and fell quickly. The shard still glowed in her hand, humming with deadly power. But her grip weakened. For the first time, doubt filled her. Could it be true? Could it be that even in this ruined world, her life still had meaning? The girl looked into the human's eyes, searching for cruelty, for trickery. She found none. Instead, she saw pain and hope, buried deep but still alive. The wind grew stronger, whipping her hair across her face. Her tears finally fell, shining against her silver skin. She did not press the shard. Her hand lowered slowly, carefully. The human let out a breath he had been holding. His shoulders relaxed just a little. For the first time, the alien girl felt the smallest spark inside her chest, a spark she thought had died forever. But before she could speak, before she could ask who this human was, a loud sound echoed across the ruins. Heavy footsteps, metal claws striking stone. The enemy patrol was near. The man's eyes snapped to the shadows and his hand moved to his weapon. His voice, sharp now, cut through the night. "They're coming. If you want to live, stay with me." The alien girl's heart pounded. She looked at the shard in her hand, then at the man before her. A choice stood in front of her. To follow death, or to follow this stranger into the unknown. And for the first time since her world fell apart, she did not know what she would choose. The night swallowed them in silence, and the story of survival had just begun. The ruins shook as the sound of metal claws echoed through the empty streets. The alien girl froze. her shard still glowing faintly in her hand, her breath caught in her throat. Those sounds meant only one thing, the patrol. The machines of war built to hunt, built to kill. The human stepped closer, his hand gripping the weapon on his side. His eyes scanned the shadows, sharp and alert. Yet his voice, when it reached her, was calm. Stay low. Stay quiet. The girl hesitated. Her heart screamed at her to run, to leave him behind, to trust no one. But the noise of the patrol grew louder, closer. She knew if she ran, the machines would catch her. Her only chance was this human. Slowly, she crouched beside him, her long silver fingers trembling as she held the shard tightly. The patrol passed, 3 towering machines moving like dark beasts of iron. Their red eyes glowed, sweeping the ruins, searching for life. The girl held her breath, her body tense as stone. Beside her, the human did not move. His breathing was steady, controlled. He looked more like a hunter than prey. One of the machines stopped. Its red eye paused on the rubble near them. The girl's heart nearly burst from her chest. She thought it had seen them. She thought it was over, but the human reached out slowly, carefully. His hand brushed her arm, gentle, grounding, steady. His touch told her, stay still. Don't fear. The machine's eye swept away, and after a long, cruel moment, the patrol moved on. The sound of metal claws faded into the distance. The girl let out a shaky breath. Her body collapsed against the wall, her hands trembling. She almost dropped the shard. The human lowered his weapon and turned to her. His voice was low, almost a whisper. You're not safe here. Come with me. Her eyes narrowed. Why should I trust you? Her voice was sharp but weak with fear. He studied her, his face calm though his eyes were heavy with fatigue. Because if you stay alone, you will die. She said nothing. Her people had told her humans were liars, tricksters, destroyers. But this man had not lied yet. He had not hurt her. Instead, he had stopped her from ending her own life. Instead, he had saved her when the machines were near. The girl pushed herself to her feet. Her long eyes locked on him. If I follow you, where do you take me? He looked around the broken streets, scanning the ruins with careful eyes. Then he nodded toward the distance where the shadows of mountains rose against the dark horizon. There's an old shelter, underground. It was built before the war. If we move fast, we can reach it before sunrise. The alien girl studied him. She wanted to refuse, to walk away, to keep her pride. But her heart reminded her of the silence, the loneliness, the endless night she had lived in. The memory of almost pressing the shard into her chest still burned in her mind. She whispered softly, almost to herself. Maybe I already died. The human turned his gaze back to her. Not yet. Not while you still breathe. His words struck her again like before. Simple words, but powerful. The kind of words no one had ever spoken to her. Not her commanders, not her family, not even her people. Something in her chest shifted. She lowered the shard at her side and nodded once, slowly. Show me the way. The human gave a small nod. Not victory, not relief, just quiet acceptance. He turned and began moving through the ruins, his steps silent, practiced. The girl followed, her senses sharp, her fear still close, but no longer crushing her. As they moved, she studied him. His armor was scarred and burnt, carrying the marks of many battles. His weapon was heavy, scratched, but still functional. His steps were steady even though his body carried a limp. He was wounded. She could see it in the way he moved, slow on one side. Yet he did not complain. He did not stumble. He walked as if carrying the weight of the entire world on his back. Finally, after a long silence, she spoke. What is your name, human? He did not look back. His voice was steady. Ethan. She repeated the name quietly, tasting the sound of it. Ethan. It was strange, short, different from the names of her people, but it carried strength. And yours? He asked, her lips tightened. For a moment she wanted to hide it, but then she whispered, Sira. Ethan nodded once. Sira. Then we survived together, Sira. The words hung in the air. Together. The girl had not heard that word in so long. They continued walking, slipping through shadows, hiding when the patrols passed, moving like ghosts in the ruins of a dead city. At one point Ethan stumbled slightly, his hand pressing against his side. Blood stained the edge of his armor. Sira stopped, her eyes wide. You are hurt? She said quickly. It's nothing, Ethan replied, trying to keep walking, but she stepped in front of him, blocking his path. Her sharp alien eyes glared at him. You saved me. Do not lie. For the first time Ethan paused. His tired eyes softened as he looked at her. A faint, weary smile touched his lips. You sound like someone who cares. Sierra froze. The words caught her by surprise. Did she care? She didn't know. But something inside her stirred again. That spark, that faint light. The ruins stretched ahead, the night cold and endless. The path would be dangerous. The machines would hunt them. The war was not over. But as they moved forward side by side, a strange and fragile truth began to form. Two enemies, broken and alone, had chosen not to die in silence. For the first time, they walked as survivors, and in the shadows, the story of their bond had only just begun. The night stretched endlessly as Ethan and Sierra moved through the ruins. The moonlight touched the broken towers, and the sound of distant machines echoed like drums of war. Both walked carefully, their shadows long and silent against the cracked streets. Neither spoke for some time. The silence between them was heavy, filled with questions neither dared to ask. She was alien. He was human. Their people had spilled blood for years. Yet now they walked together. Sierra's sharp eyes studied Ethan as they moved. His limp was growing worse. Every step seemed to cost him pain, though he tried to hide it. His hand sometimes pressed against his side where the armor was torn. She could smell the faint trace of blood. At last, she broke the silence. Her voice was low, suspicious, but also curious. You could have left me. Why didn't you? Ethan did not stop walking. His eyes stayed on the shadows ahead. His answer came after a pause. Because I've seen enough death. I don't want to see another life thrown away. Not yours, Sierra frowned. She could not understand it. Humans were supposed to be selfish, cold. Yet his words, they carried something else. Something dangerous. Something she did not know. Mercy. You speak as if my life matters, she said sharply. I am your enemy. Ethan glanced at her, his face pale in the moonlight. Maybe to your people, maybe to mine. But right now, I don't see an enemy. I see someone who deserves a chance. Her chest tightened. The shard in her hand felt heavy again, as if reminding her of the choice she almost made. His words fought against the darkness inside her, and for a moment she hated him for it. They stopped near the ruins of a tall tower. Ethan motioned for silence. The red glow of another patrol passed in the distance. Both crouched low, hidden by broken stone. The sound of the machines rattled the ground, shaking dust into the air. Sierra held her breath, her body tense. But as she crouched beside Ethan, her sharp alien eyes caught something strange. His hands were shaking. His face was tight with pain. The wound was worse than he admitted. The patrol moved on, the sound fading slowly into the night. Only then did Sierra whisper, You are dying. Ethan gave a faint smirk, though it carried no joy. Not yet, she narrowed her eyes. If you fall, I cannot carry you. Why risk yourself for me? He looked at her then, really looked. His eyes were tired, but inside them was something deep, something she did not expect. Because someone once saved me when I wanted to give up. He said quietly, and I failed to return the favor. I won't make the same mistake again. Sierra stared at him, her chest tightening. His words struck her harder than any weapon. She wanted to ask who saved him, who he lost, what pain he carried. But the sound of approaching danger silenced her questions. From the shadows, a small enemy drone crawled across the rubble. Its red eye blinked, scanning for heat. Ethan raised his weapon, but his hand trembled too much. Before he could fire, Sierra moved. With sudden speed, she struck the drone with her shard, slicing through its metal core. The machine sparked and fell silent. Ethan's eyes widened. For the first time, she had saved him. They stared at the smoking remains of the drone, the silence between them heavy again. Sierra's voice was sharp, almost defensive. Do not think this means I trust you. I only did it because if you die, I will not survive either. Ethan gave a small nod. That's reason enough. But his eyes carried a glimmer of something else. Respect. They moved again, deeper into the ruins. The city was darker here, quieter, but more dangerous. Shadows shifted like living things. Broken walls whispered of battles long gone. At last, they stopped inside the remains of an old building. The roof was gone, and the stars looked down like cold watchers. Ethan leaned against the wall, his breathing heavy. Blood darkened his armor. Sierra stood near, her shard still in her hand. Her voice was softer now, though she did not mean it to be. Your wound, it will kill you if you do not rest, he gave a tired chuckle. Resting here will kill us faster. She looked away, her long eyes glimmering in the faint starlight. For the first time, she spoke honestly. I thought humans had no mercy, no soul. Only war. Ethan's gaze did not waver. And I thought your people hated us without reason. Maybe we were both wrong. The words hung between them. Heavy, dangerous, true. Sierra felt her throat tighten. She wanted to deny it, to say he was her enemy, to hold on to the hate she was raised with, but she couldn't, not after his words. Not after he stopped her final moment. The silence stretched, broken only by the whisper of the wind. Then, from the distance, came the sharp roar of engines. Not machines this time, but soldiers. A human patrol. Ethan's face hardened. He looked at Sierra. If they find you, they will kill you. Sierra's grip on the shard tightened. And what of you? You are one of them. He shook his head slowly. Not anymore. Not after this. Her eyes widened. Shock filled her. This human, this soldier, had chosen her side. The sound of the patrol grew louder. Sierra's heart pounded. The human stranger's secrets were only beginning to unfold. And with them, her own beliefs began to shatter. Enemies or not, their survival was now bound together. And somewhere in the ruins, both of them began to wonder, could trust grow where only hatred once lived? The night city was no longer silent. The growl of human patrol engines echoed through the ruins, bouncing between broken towers. Heavy boots crunched stone, and the metallic click of rifles carried through the air. Sierra crouched behind a shattered wall, her breath sharp and quick. Beside her, Ethan pressed one hand against his bleeding side, his weapon ready in the other. His eyes stayed locked on the shadows ahead. They're closing in, he whispered. Sierra's grip on her shard tightened. Then why do you not go to them? They are your people. Ethan's jaw hardened. Not anymore. Not tonight, her eyes narrowed. She wanted to argue, to demand answers. But the sound of approaching voices silenced her. The patrol was too close. Ethan motioned toward a narrow alley. This way. Move quietly. Sierra hesitated only a moment before following. The alley was dark, filled with broken stone and shattered glass. Their footsteps crunched lightly, but the noise of the patrol was louder. They kept low, shadows among shadows. The soldiers swept through the streets, their flashlights cutting across the darkness like blades of light. Orders were shouted. Search patterns moved closer. Sierra's heart pounded. She had fought humans before, had killed them. But this time her fear was not of battle. It was of discovery. If they found her, they would execute her on sight. And Ethan, she still did not know if they would spare him. They slipped into another ruin, the remains of what had once been a marketplace. Broken stalls lay scattered like bones, and shattered glass crunched under their boots. Here, Ethan whispered, guiding her behind a fallen beam. They pressed into the shadows as the glow of flashlights swept across the open floor. Soldiers moved inside, scanning, searching. Sierra's breathing quickened. She pressed the shard against her chest, ready to strike if discovered. Her body trembled with tension. She glanced at Ethan. His face was calm, but sweat glistened on his brow. His wound was worse, she could see it now. His armor was soaked with blood. Still, he held his weapon steady, his finger on the trigger, his eyes sharp. He was ready to fight for her. For her. The soldiers paused, their flashlights stopping inches from the shadow where Ethan and Sierra hid. Time froze. Sierra's hand shook around the shard. Ethan's eyes narrowed, steady, unblinking, then shouting from outside. Another patrol calling. The soldiers turned, muttering curses, and left. The light vanished. The sound of boots faded. Sierra exhaled, her whole body shaking. Ethan lowered his weapon, his breath rough. We can't stay in the open, he said. They'll sweep the whole sector. She looked at him sharply. You can barely stand. Your wound is killing you. He smirked faintly. Then we move faster. Anger flared inside her chest. Anger and something else. She should not care. He was human, an enemy. But when she saw him stumble, saw his blood staining the ground, something inside her twisted painfully. Without speaking, she moved to his side and pulled his arm across her shoulder. His weight was heavy, his armor pressing into her. But she held him. She carried him. Ethan gave her a surprised look. You don't have to be quiet, she snapped. If you fall, I fall too. For a moment, he only stared at her. Then slowly he nodded. Together they moved through the ruins, one step at a time. Sierra's long legs carried them quickly, her strength surprising even her. The shadows swallowed them as they left the marketplace behind. The city grew darker the deeper they went. The ruins here were older, untouched by patrols. Yet the silence was dangerous in its own way. Too quiet, too empty. At last they reached a collapsed highway. Cars lay broken and twisted, metal skeletons scattered like forgotten bones. Ethan motioned toward a gap beneath the wreckage. "Down there," he said. "The tunnels." Sierra eyed the darkness below. It was black, cold, unwelcoming. But the sound of engines behind them left no choice. She nodded, helping him down first, then sliding in after. The tunnels were damp, dripping with water. The air smelled of rust and mold. Their footsteps echoed softly, swallowed by endless dark. Sierra's voice finally broke the silence. "Why?" Ethan looked at her, confused. "Why what? Why protect me? Why risk your life for mine? You gain nothing." He sighed, leaning against the tunnel wall for a moment. His face was pale, his voice quiet, because once, someone did the same for me, and I didn't deserve it either. Her eyes studied him in the gloom. His words were simple but heavy. She wanted to ask more, but she saw the pain in his face. She let the silence hold instead. They kept moving deeper into the tunnels. The sound of the world above faded. Only their breaths and footsteps remained. At one point, Ethan stumbled hard, almost falling. Sierra caught him, her hands gripping his arms. Their eyes met in the darkness. For a moment, it felt as if the world stopped. She whispered softly, "You are stubborn, human." He gave a faint grin. "Takes one to know one." Sierra almost smiled. Almost. But her heart beat faster, and she turned away quickly, pulling him forward again. They pressed deeper into the shadows, hunted above, bleeding within, uncertain of what lay ahead, and in that cold tunnel, Sierra realized a truth she had never thought possible. Her survival was no longer her own. It was bound to his, enemies or not. Their fates were tied together in the dark, and the longer they walked side by side, the harder it became to remember why they were enemies at all. The tunnels stretched on like veins of stone and rust, twisting under the dead city. Water dripped from cracked pipes. Rats scurried in the darkness. The air was damp, cold, and heavy. Ethan leaned against the wall, his breath rough, his wound slowing him down. Sierra walked beside him, silent but alert, her shard glowing faintly in her hand. She listened for any sound of pursuit, but only silence pressed against them now. At last, they stopped in a small chamber where the ceiling had collapsed, leaving a gap of moonlight pouring in from above. Dust floated in the pale glow, and broken machines lay scattered, abandoned long ago. Ethan sank against the wall, his face pale. His armor was soaked with blood. Sierra frowned, kneeling beside him. "You will not last if you do not treat it," she said coldly. He gave a weak smile. "You sound like you care again." Her eyes narrowed. "I do not. But if you die, I die too." Ethan chuckled, though the sound was strained. "Fair enough." But as she pulled a strip of cloth from her ruined cloak and pressed it against his wound, she felt something inside her shift. His blood was warm against her hands. He winced but did not push her away. For the first time, she looked at him not as a soldier, not as an enemy, but as a living being struggling to hold on. And that made him dangerous, not for his weapon, but for the strange truth he carried inside him. Sierra's voice was quiet, almost reluctant. "You said someone once saved you." "Who?" Ethan's eyes softened. He stared past her into the shadows. His voice dropped low, heavy with memory. "My brother," he whispered. "When I was young, we were trapped after a raid. I was wounded, ready to give up. But he carried me, fought for me until I lived. He gave everything." His jaw tightened. His breath shook, and I couldn't save him when it was his turn. I watched him fall. I watched him die because I was too weak to stop it. Silence filled the chamber. The dripping water seemed louder now. Sierra's hands froze as she wrapped the cloth around his wound. She studied his face, the pain carved deep into it. For the first time, she saw not just a soldier, but a man broken by loss. Her own voice trembled when she spoke. "You carry his ghost." Ethan's eyes closed for a moment. "Every day," Sierra lowered her gaze. Her shard glowed faintly in her lap, a reminder of the moment she almost ended her own life. Her voice was soft, almost like a confession. "I too was ready to fall. My people are gone. My family burned in the first strikes. I fought, but it did not matter. All I had left was silence. I thought death was the only escape." Her throat tightened, but she forced the words out. "When you spoke to me, when you stopped me, it was the first time anyone told me my life mattered." Ethan opened his eyes. They met hers in the dim moonlight. "Because it does." The words hit her chest like fire. She wanted to look away, to hide, but she couldn't. His gaze held her, steady and honest. No trick, no lies. For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the sound of dripping water echoed around them. Then the ground above shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Voices echoed faintly through the tunnels. The enemy was searching below now. Ethan's eyes hardened. He struggled to stand, leaning on the wall. "We need to move." Sierra caught his arm, steadying him. "You are too weak." He shook his head. "I won't stop. Not while you still breathe." Her chest tightened again. That same spark inside her grew brighter, fighting against the darkness. She wanted to tell him to rest. She wanted to tell him he was a fool. Instead, she whispered, "You are stubborn, human." His lips curved into a faint smile. "So are you, alien." Together they moved deeper into the tunnels, their steps uneven but steady. The sound of pursuit grew louder. The hunters were close. They stopped near a broken passage where the tunnel split. Ethan leaned heavily on her shoulder. His face was pale, his breath shallow. Sierra's heart pounded. If he collapsed now, they would both die. She had to choose, abandon him or stay with him. Her grip on him tightened. The choice was already made. They pressed forward through the deeper dark. At last, they found a hidden chamber carved into the rock, filled with old supplies, crates, broken weapons, scraps of fabric. It was a forgotten shelter, long abandoned. They collapsed inside. Sierra sealed the door with rubble, her shard glowing to fuse the stone. The hunters' voices grew distant. Safe for now. Ethan slumped against the wall, exhausted. His eyes closed, his breathing heavy. Sierra sat across from him, her sharp eyes watching. Her mind spun. She should not feel this way. She should not care. But the truth was there, burning inside her chest. This human was no longer her enemy. He was the reason she was alive. And in the silence of the dark shelter, Sierra whispered words she never thought she would say. "Ethan, thank you." His eyes opened slowly. He looked at her, weary but alive. And for the first time since the war began, both felt something stronger than fear. A fragile bond, a dangerous hope. The hidden chamber was silent except for the sound of dripping water and Ethan's uneven breathing. Sierra sat across from him, her shard glowing faintly in the darkness. The glow painted her silver skin in soft light, while Ethan's face looked pale, carved with pain. He leaned against the stone wall, struggling to stay awake. His armor was broken, his wound deep, yet his eyes still held a spark of determination. Sierra studied him, her long eyes sharp, but filled with something new, something unfamiliar. She had seen soldiers die with empty faces, but this human, he fought to live, not only for himself, but for her. The silence between them broke when Ethan spoke, his voice rough. "They'll find this place sooner or later. We can't hide forever," Sierra frowned. "You can barely walk. If we leave now, you will not survive." He gave a faint smile, weak but steady. "Then I'll crawl." "I'm not stopping." Her chest tightened. His stubbornness angered her, but it also forced her to remember her own weakness. She had almost ended her life. She had given up. Yet this human, bleeding and broken, refused to surrender. She whispered almost against her will. "Why do you fight so hard?" Ethan's eyes met hers. "Because life means something. Yours, mine. Even in the ruins, it matters." His words struck her again, cutting through the wall she had built inside. For the first time, she lowered her shard completely. She no longer held it as a weapon, but as a memory of what almost was. Before she could answer, the ground trembled. A distant explosion shook dust from the ceiling. The walls groaned. Voices echoed faintly in the tunnels. The hunters were near. Ethan forced himself to stand, leaning heavily on the wall. Sierra rose quickly, steadying him. His weight pressed against her, heavy but not unwelcome. "They've found the tunnels," Ethan said, his voice sharp. "We have two choices. Stay here and wait for death, or fight our way out." Sierra's breath caught. She had no strength left for hate, no will left for despair. But as she looked at him, standing even when his body was broken, something inside her answered. She nodded. "Then we fight." His eyes softened. For a brief moment, a small smile touched his lips. Together. The word burned inside her like fire. Together. An enemy, a human speaking to her as if they were one. The sound of boots grew louder. The glow of flashlights cut through cracks in the stone. The hunters were almost here. Ethan raised his weapon, his hands steady despite his weakness. Sierra lifted her shard, its glow brightening. They stood side by side in the broken chamber, two survivors ready for one last stand. The door exploded inward. Soldiers poured in, rifles raised. Red lights flashed, beams cutting through the darkness. Ethan fired first, the blast echoing like thunder. One soldier fell. Sierra moved like lightning, her shards slicing through armor, sparks flying. Together they fought, back to back, their movements unspoken but perfectly aligned. But there were too many. Bullets tore into stone, sparks flying around them. Ethan grunted, his wound reopening. Blood stained the floor. Sierra spun, cutting down another enemy, but her chest pounded with panic. She could feel him weakening. She could feel the weight of choice pressing down. At last, Ethan staggered, falling to one knee. A soldier aimed at him, ready to fire. Sierra's scream ripped through the chamber as she leapt forward, her shard cutting the enemy down. She turned back to Ethan, her eyes wide with fear. "You can't fall," she whispered harshly. "Not now." Ethan's eyes met hers, filled with pain but steady. His voice was low, almost gentle. "If I fall, then you live." Her chest ached. She shook her head fiercely. "No, I was ready to die. You are the reason I live. Do not take that from me." More soldiers rushed in. The chamber shook with gunfire. Ethan forced himself to stand again, his body trembling, his weapon raised. "This is the choice, Sierra," he said, his voice strong despite the weakness in his body. "Run and live. Or stay and die with me." Her heart raced. The world slowed. She remembered the night sky above the ruins, the silence of her final moment, the voice that had stopped her, his voice. And now here, in the fire and shadows, she knew the truth. She could not leave him. She would not. Her eyes burned with tears as she stepped closer, standing shoulder to shoulder with him. Her voice was steady, fierce. "Then we die together." Ethan's lips curved into a faint, tired smile. "That's the bravest thing I've ever heard." The chamber roared with battle. Soldiers poured in, but Sierra and Ethan fought as one. Her shard flashed with light. His weapon thundered in the dark. Enemies fell, but more came. And yet in the heart of the storm they stood unbroken. Sierra's heart no longer whispered of death. It burned with life, fierce and wild, because she was no longer alone, because in her final choice she had chosen him. The chamber shook with fire and steel. Gunfire echoed like thunder, and sparks lit the shadows as bullets tore into stone. Ethan and Sierra stood back to back, fighting as if they had always been one. Her shard blazed with silver light, cutting through armor, leaving trails of burning sparks. His rifle roared, every shot precise despite his trembling hands. Each breath came harder, each movement slower, yet neither yielded. Bodies fell around them, but more soldiers pressed in. The hunters wanted blood. They wanted silence. Ethan's weapon clicked empty. He tossed it aside, pulling a blade from his belt. His chest heaved, sweat mixing with blood. He knew he was near his end, but his stance was unbroken. Sierra struck down another soldier, her sharp eyes darting toward him. She could see the weakness in his body, the way his knees buckled. He would not last. Her heart burned with fear. The soldiers regrouped at the entrance, ready to rush again. Heavy boots thundered closer. Voices shouted orders. Ethan turned to her. His face was pale, his eyes steady. "Sierra, you can still run." Her chest tightened, her voice sharp with anger. "Stop saying that." His lips curved in a faint smile. "It's the truth. You have a chance." Her hands shook, but not from fear, from rage, from the unbearable thought of losing him. "You think I will abandon you? After everything? After your words pulled me back from death?" Ethan's voice dropped, soft, almost a whisper. "That's why you must live. Because you matter. You proved it when you chose to fight again. That's your flame, Sierra. Don't let it die." Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She gripped her shard so tightly her fingers ached. "No, my flame burns because of you. Without you, it goes dark." The soldiers charged. Ethan roared, charging to meet them, his blade flashing. He moved with fury, with desperation, with everything he had left. Sierra rushed at his side, her shard carving light through the dark. The battle became chaos, steel against steel, sparks against shadows. Ethan's blade pierced one soldier, then another, but his body faltered. A rifle cracked and he stumbled, a shot grazing his arm. Blood sprayed. He staggered but kept moving. Sierra screamed, cutting down the one who fired. Her shard glowed brighter, fueled by fury. For a moment it seemed endless. The tide of soldiers, the flood of death. And then, a sudden silence. The last enemy fell, his weapon clattering against stone. The chamber was filled with smoke, with the stink of blood and fire. The echoes of battle slowly died. Sierra stood in the center, her chest heaving, her shard dimming. She turned. Ethan collapsed. Her heart froze. She dropped her shard and rushed to him, catching him before his head struck the ground. His blood stained her hands, warm and heavy. His eyes half-closed met hers. Ethan, her voice broke, trembling. He gave a weak smile, faint but real. You fought like a warrior. Her tears fell freely now, streaking down her silver skin. Do not speak like this. You will live. You must live. His hand, shaking, reached up and touched her cheek. Warm. Fragile. Human. Sierra. When I stopped you that night, I wasn't saving you. His voice was low, fading. You saved me. You gave me a reason again. Her chest ached with unbearable pain. She pressed his hand against her face, her tears falling onto his fingers. You cannot leave me. I was ready to die, but you showed me life. Ethan's eyes glimmered with something beyond pain, something brighter. Then promise me. Live it, carry it. Let them know. Humanity was more than war. Her tears fell harder. She shook her head. I will not let you go. But his hand fell from her cheek, limp. His eyes slowly closed. His breath slowed. No. Her voice broke, shaking the chamber with sorrow. No. For a long moment, silence returned. The ruins seemed to mourn with her. Then, her shard glowed. Not dim, but bright. Brighter than ever before. The light pulsed, fierce and wild, as if responding to her heart. Sierra held Ethan's still body, her tears falling onto his armor. But inside, something had changed. His words were not ashes. They were fire. Her voice steadied even as it cracked. You gave me your flame. I will carry it. She rose, lifting him gently, her shard glowing like a star in the dark. The war still raged outside. The world was still broken. But inside her burned something that no machine, no enemy, no silence could kill. Hope. As she walked through the tunnels, her steps steady, her tears finally drying, she whispered the words that had once stopped her final moment. Life matters, even mine. And above the ruins, as dawn broke for the first time in many dark days, the alien girl carried humanity's flame into the new light. Not alone. Never again.